Joining me right now to talk a little bit about what's happening down in Austin in the state legislature with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, Chuck DeVore. Chuck, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, sorry I was a little late. I was busy deleting some emails.
Oh, no.
Time got away from me, and then I noticed that I was supposed to be on the radio with you, and it's like, oh, shoot, I only was able to delete 10,000 so far. I got another 20,000 to go.
All right, well, good luck. We'll make it quick so that way you can get back to now. Do you actually delete your own emails?
Actually, I do about a year back, right? In other words, we actually run out of server space, and so Microsoft Outlook tells me I'm ready to run out of server space and says I need to delete some emails. So I just go back and usually every month I delete like a month's worth of emails about a year earlier, right? Because I use them to search, right? I use them to try to bring up or find like conversations or things that I sent to people, because someone will say, what was it that we determined like 9 months ago?
Right.
Or, and so I use that kind of like a filing system, but unfortunately, because of space limitations, I usually can only save them about a year back.
Just go get you a private server. It'll be okay.
That's right.
Just go get a private server. But Chuck DeVore, a man of the people, he deletes his own email. Hillary Clinton, she has other people do that.
Other people do her work.
Yeah, someone else do that. Chuck, a lot's going on down in Austin. We've got spending caps being talked about. We also have transportation funding that was brought up yesterday, unveiled transportation funding going forward.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things going on in the legislature. Today is bill filing deadline, so today is the last day that members can file new bills. And so there's been a lot of activity. And as you say, there's been bills dealing with funding of transportation, tax bills, budget proposals. So a lot of things are going on.
As of right now, and I know not everyone has had time to go through, what the House has fully released, but the House budget set up transportation funding, and there's going to be a debate between the Senate and the House and within the House, and we all know how that goes. But what does the House look like with their funding of transportation?
Well, the big differences right now is there seems to be, first of all, let's look at the agreement. Number one, we had that Proposition 1 last November that resulted in $1.7 billion more for transportation this year, probably a little over $1 billion every year after that. That makes up for the debt that we used to use to fund our roads for the last 10 years, Prop 14 and Prop 12. Those have basically expired, and so that kind of makes up for that. The other thing that the two houses agree on is ending diversions away from Fund 6. Fund 6 is the transportation fund. And so we spend about $600 million a year to fund things like the Department of Public Safety that are kind of related to roads, but, it's not building roads, it's not maintaining roads, it's for public safety.
Right.
And so if we end those diversions, that put another $600 million or so into the kitty for transportation. So you're looking at maybe a little over $2 billion every year to transportation as the result of those two changes. Now, the agreement kind of ends there. And what you see in the Senate side is there appears to be more interest in dedicating funding to roads, constitutionally dedicating it so there'd have to be a vote of the people, and potentially $2 to $2.5 billion a year that would be dedicated based on kind of walling off sales tax receipts that are related to transportation items, like when you buy a car and things like that. Now, the problem with dedicating, Chad, is that when you dedicate to the Constitution like that, the spending doesn't count to the spending limit, the state's constitutional spending limit. And what that means is that government can grow larger and there can be less room for tax cuts. And so that's kind of what's coming out of the Senate. The House doesn't seem to be going that way right now. So that seems to be the main point of disagreement.
Very interesting. Visiting with Chuck DeVore, Texas Public Policy Foundation. There's been a large debate over spending caps down in Austin and whether or not we should redefine. Some are using the word redefine. Some are saying just completely busting the spending caps. Can you kind of put into a nutshell this debate that's being had?
Yeah, it's a very, very important debate, and it really gets complicated, and so let's try to cut through the fog a bit. The current spending cap in Texas only covers about 40% of the state's expenditures. So, for example, it doesn't cover federal funding for Medicaid, right? So federal funds aren't covered, and it doesn't cover things that are dedicated. So when you have something that's constitutionally dedicated, for example, the spending on roads that came about from Prop 1 last year, where they take money out of the state savings account and put it into roads, that doesn't count toward the spending cap. So some of the discussions have been, well, what if we expanded the spending cap to cover everything or more things than the 40%? That's a good thing. We agree with that because it would cause more fiscal discipline across more spending areas in the state of Texas. Now, the other discussion about the spending cap has to do with, well, how do you calculate it? Do you use a forecast of income growth, of personal income for the future, which is what we currently do, and then you have politics kind of intruding because you have multiple forecasts and the politicians get to pick which one they want, and so they can pick a higher forecast if they want, and that will let them spend more money. Well, alternatively, you can look backwards and you can use historical information and look at, for example, population plus inflation, and then only allow government to grow by that. That's what we prefer at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. We think it's more honest and more accurate, more reflective of keeping government in check and making sure we don't have government that we can't afford. And so those are what kind of the discussions are focused on, are those key points. How much of the state spending is covered under the cap, and do you look at forward-looking, forecasted, more speculative spending, as far as the cap, or do you look backwards and look at historical data?
There's also been a proposal, correct, to exempt tax cuts and debt service. Is that right?
That's right. And again, those sorts of things get into an interesting discussion, and if they're viewed in isolation, right, by themselves, I could see where you should be reticent about it, right, because it would allow you to spend more money. However, if you look at it as part of the package that's being proposed out of the Senate with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, then it starts to look a little better for the taxpayers. It starts to look, when you look at the package, right, of what he's trying to do with the tax cuts that could be very transformative, then the changes that he's proposing start to look more attractive. It's only when you look at it in isolation that it raises some eyebrows and it makes it look like it's trying to be weakened.
Visiting with Chuck DeVore, Texas Public Policy Foundation. All bills have to be filed today, correct?
That's it. Today's the deadline. And what's funny, your listeners will get a kick out of this. If you go up to the Capitol right now, you're going to find increasingly there's like these handmade signs on the front of all doors saying, "Do not come and see us if you want us to file a bill for you." So
a little bit too late. A little bit too late if you want us to draft language for you, correct?
Yes, like go away.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what last-minute bills are filed today. There's already been a few that have been filed that are some head scratchers out there from some Republicans that I'll be talking about later on. But next week we'll kind of get into some of these last-minute bills that are filed. Sometimes you have lawmakers that try to sneak in some things at the very last minute. They don't want any bad publicity. But
lawmakers trying to sneak in things?
I know. It's great. It's almost like someone deleting their own emails as Secretary of State. It's amazing what would happen. Chuck, tell folks a little bit about the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Well, we're 26 years old. We're a free market think tank here in downtown Austin, and we're at texaspolicy.com. All
right. A lot of people need to go to the website. Also, one of the big news items of the week, Right on Crime, welcoming in Rick Perry.
Well, yeah, that was a big deal. One of the things that we're pretty excited about is the fact that, Texas has been doing this criminal justice reform for almost 10 years now. Our crime rates drop more rapidly than the national average. Our crime rate's now down to levels not seen since 1968, and so we've made the public safer. We've shut 3 prisons down rather than build 3 new ones, saved $3 billion, and took some of that money and put it into rehab and treatment, monitoring, parole, and Governor Perry is the one that signed into law the things that allowed that. So he's now joined us with our national Right on Crime effort to apply conservative principles to criminal justice reform across the country.
Very nice. It'll be a good thing for Right on Crime and for Rick Perry, I think, in the future as well. As always, Chuck DeVore, pleasure speaking with you. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, sir.
All right, have a good one. Chuck DeVore, TexasPolicy.com, Texas Public Policy Foundation.